The July 25 sitting of the National Assembly was proceeded with despite a request from the government for a postponement to facilitate consultations on the way forward with regards to the Hydroelectric Amendment Bill and the debt ceiling motion, both of which were defeated when the House met on July 18.
Our approach to defer or to postpone this meeting was not born of any issue of arrogance. It was not born of any sense of arrogance. It was an adjustment to the current situation that we have.
The move to defer the sitting was criticized by the opposition. They accused the government of attempting to usurp the power of the parliament.
Standing Order Rule 8 Rule 2 says, if during the adjournment of the assembly, it is represented to the speaker by the government or the speaker is of the opinion that the public interest requires that the assembly should meet on a day earlier. On a day earlier. There is no power under the standing orders to postpone an adjourned date.
Government, by way of letter, informed the Speaker that the adjournment of the sitting would provide more time for the parliamentary parties to reach consensus on what the government view as the most significant and single largest transformative development project.
We believe that the government's right to call a date and to postpone it is enshrined in the area where the standing orders very clearly say that when the House is adjourned to a date to be fixed, it is only the government that can name that date. When a date has been set, the government are of the view that circumstances that would help to further an issue in consultations, because I repeat, Mr. Speaker, that almost all of the 6 times that postponements were called, except 2, they were based on the issue of trying to reach some kind of accord. And they were all allowed, Mr. Speaker, they were all allowed. They were also they did not all come about from consensus between the 2 sides of the House.
Prior to the sitting, President Donald Ramotar called the leader of the opposition, David Granger, re-emphasizing the importance of the Amila project and requesting that the parties engage in more dialogue with a view of resolving the existing issues.
As the government of this country, we will always firmly believe that where we can reach consensus, we will do all to do that. And if that required, Mr. Speaker, a call for a postponement to allow us to have breathing space, to have the negotiators meet and talk, then so be it. But Mr. Speaker, reference have been made that there have been no talks, no discussions. And again, you know, political parties engage with each other in a variety of ways. Subtleties, telephone calls, in the modern days BBMs, in the modern day text, emails, over a drink, at the supermarket. But these are all healthy ways of keeping us talking. If we are not talking, we go nowhere.
The opposition was of the view that nothing could be accomplished, particularly as it relates to consensus, within the 13-day period that the government was requesting.
I've been around enough in politics to have seen enough of this, where at the worst of times, with violence out on the road in 1997, I've been around long enough to know in the midst of the violence, talks were going on and agreements were reached, Mr. Speaker. I've been around long enough in the 2001 post-election violence. While the violence was going on, the leaders were talking. And yes, it ended up with the Hertz-Marston Accord. It ended up with the St. Lucia Accord. It ended up with a constitutional reform which we should all be proud of. It ended up with a parliamentary reform that we didn't even envisage when we started in 1999. The dangers that faces us in Guyana politically, in the political realm, is short-sightedness, is an ability to know what the battles are at which time, which ones we will fight now down to the teeth, and which ones we can keep on fighting and try to reach agreement on. Mr. Speaker, we are at a critical point in this country. Critical point in this country. And I have said to you, sir, before, and I'll say it in this House, that what is going on will end up an egg on everybody's face. So if this behavior of not agreeing to the postponement, or you don't like the postponement or whatever, and this view that there's nothing we can accomplish in 13 days, then, sir, it is not only going to be a miler that's going to be lost. It's not only, sir, government that's going to be lost, but you are going to lose. You are going to lose. The people of this country are not stupid. They're extremely intelligent. They understand.
The sentiments expressed by the government's chief whip were shared by the Speaker of the House, who maintained that inter-party dialogue and consensus is the only way forward for the 10th Parliament.
For this 10th Parliament, I believe that if it ever is to have even a chance at success, it must be characterized by engagement and by good faith. If not this 10th Parliament, and by that I mean every member thereof will be considered a failure. And so, for me, every effort should be made at engagement, to pursue it, and a dialogue. And that the door to that should never be closed. And Mr. Shearer is correct, because in 1997 and in 2001, even in the height of protests and violent incidents and things happening, there were talks on going into wee hours of the morning. And for 3 years thereafter, teams of both parties met every day at a hotel and under the aegis of CARICOM and the CARICOM facilitator, and we spoke for 3 years non-stop, and were able to bring about many of the reforms that we have.
Despite stirring pleas from the government side, the motion was outvoted by the opposition's 32 against the government's 27 votes, and the sitting was proceeded with. A motion moved by the opposition leader to establish a commission of inquiry to inquire into the maritime and riverine incidents which have occurred since January 1, 1999 was adopted by the House.
We, in a Partnership for National Unity, feel that a commission of inquiry is necessary to determine precisely how many deaths have occurred, and in order to make recommendations to prevent further deaths from occurring. We learned from information provided by the Honorable Minister of Public Works that more than 9 people die on average every year.
Public Works Minister Robeson Ben informed the House of the many measures that have been taken over the years through the Maritime Administration to ensure safer river travel, including the setting up of a Maritime Rescue and Coordination Center.
Since we are the Public Works Ministry and the Maritime Administration Department, and myself personally are very close to this matter and have been working extremely hard to bring about improvements with respect to this issue, which has seen challenging circumstances because of the tremendous growth, as was said by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Brigadier Retired Granger, that we have moved, in his words, from a choreal economy to a more commercial economy.
The motion was adopted and the House stands adjourned until August 7.